This is Wendy Montroy, and you're listening to Turtle Tea with TTPG. We're bringing you bite-sized turtle and tortoise species, care, and husbandry info. This show is brought to you by the Turtle and Tortoise Preservation Group, whose mission is to ensure the survival of the world's turtles and tortoises through captive breeding. Hey everybody, today we're talking to Ralph Till. He's a lifetime TTPG member and a founding member of the Kleinmanni Assurance Project. Today we're going to talk about Egyptian tortoises. Welcome, Ralph, and thank you so much for joining me today. Can you tell me how you got started with this species?
Well, first, thank you for having me on. I'm thrilled to death to be part of this and anything for the TTPG. I'm a longtime supporter of it. How did I get started with the Egyptian project, if you will? Probably about, 17, 18 years ago now. I wanted to work with a small species that I felt I could make a change with, do something positive. I mean, of course, the attraction was that they were small and that they were rare, and everybody wants something that's rare. I kind of felt to that. I didn't know argument. But I was very fortunate to be introduced to someone who was one of the original souls who brought the species into well, they didn't bring it in, but they acquired wild-caught animals many, many years ago when it was legal. And I was fortunate enough to befriend this individual, and I couldn't help but be awed by the collection that he had. And that kind of set me on the path that I have to have these. And so as time went on, I managed to acquire a couple of hatchlings. And then months later, I acquired a couple of more. And then I learned about other people who had them, and I acquired a couple of more. And the next thing you know, I had 6 or 8 hatchlings. I had no idea as to the sex of them. And I said, okay, well, in my mind, I had it figured out that there was 4.4, so I'm golden. It didn't work out that way, but that was the start of it. And as time went on and the animals matured, I learned what I had. I learned that they came from different backgrounds. I kept them separated primarily because I didn't want to mix up the backgrounds. And at the same time, I observed other things by keeping them separated, and it just took off from there.
So even back when you started, they weren't super common, right? They weren't coming in great numbers.
They weren't. When I started, they weren't coming in at all.
Okay.
They stopped legal imports of the Egyptian prior to 2020, maybe in the late 90s.
Okay.
Because they were listed. Egypt posted the Egyptian under CITES back in late 1995. So, and it takes a little while for everything to get enacted.
Yeah.
Not too long after that, all exportation, if you will, out of there should have stopped, but all importation of them into the U.S. did stop. Legal importation.
So basically now we're working with animals that came in before 1995 or have been bred since then. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Most everything that has derived from those wild caught animals, and yeah, it's a challenge to find them.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about their natural history. We need to understand that before we can keep them in captivity. It looks like from my research, their native range is kind of Israel, Palestine, Libya, and Egypt. Do we know if they still exist in Egypt?
Well, sadly, no. But their original range is pretty much all of coastal Egypt.
Wow.
Into eastern Israel. Of course, Israel has a small footprint, if you will, coastal.
Yeah.
And to the west into Libya, again, along the coastal regions. For all intent, today, they're probably totally gone in Israel and Egypt.
Okay.
I'm sure there are a few. There's a preserve in Egypt. It's a large preserve, and they've tried to reintroduce specimens to that preserve, but they're all animals that have been sourced out of Libya.
Okay.
Libya does not adhere to some of the same laws, so all the confiscations and that you see every now and then, they're all coming out of Libya.
And
And that'll dry up soon.
the climate that they come from is kind of a weird mix. It's arid and kind of scrubby, but because they're coastal, they get like that marine layer.
Kind of like San Diego, you know?
Okay.
It's a coastal area, so their range comes inland from the coast. I'm going to guesstimate 30 miles. It could be
Okay.
40 or 50 miles, but that's probably the max. And so that they rely on that dew that comes in off of the Mediterranean Sea. So in the morning, everything is kind of covered with moisture,
Hmm.
and of course, then the sun comes up, and the sun's pretty intense, and it burns it right off, and it goes from 85% humidity to 20% humidity.
What are the temperatures like in their range? Do they experience very hot, very cold?
It can get cold and damp and rainy,
Hmm.
a little bit of the time. Other times it can get up well into the 90s, it'll be scorching hot. I always tell people that have these animals that want to work with them, go to vacation sites. Like right now, I have Alexandria, Egypt is a coastal city, and the high today is 79 and the low is 60. That's their winter weather.
Yeah. So I do the same thing on my phone. I add all the cities
Yeah.
that I kind of guesstimate where their range would be.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like when you look at a site and it gives you an overview of the climate, it's not giving you all the daily nuance. You don't see, oh, geez, during these months, it literally rains every day.
Yeah.
Or like they're actually hitting 50s at night, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's crazy.
so I know that they are IUCN listed as critically endangered at this point. What are their largest threats in the wild? I'm going to guess habitat loss is a big one.
I
And
would say in Egypt, habitat loss is probably number one.
okay,
It's a coastal region, it's a vacation paradise. So they want to build, I mean, it's no different than here. They want to build hotels and marinas and whatever, and then all the support stuff to go with it. Poaching is always been a problem, and it continues to be a problem. The pet trade, we can't ignore it. Like it or
yep,
not, we can't ignore it.
yep,
Back in the day when it was legal to export them, they did in droves, and they showed up in pet shops for $25 a piece. So I mean, we can't ignore that. But now, as far as Egypt and Israel are concerned, there aren't any. Number one, you're not allowed to export them, but there's none
right.
left to export. So now it's habitat destruction. That's probably the number one.
Okay. And I know we could probably talk about this for an entire hour, but we have to at least touch on the ESA listing. I'll let you say your opinion just from kind of an outside, the way I see it. It feels like the ESA listings does absolutely zero for wild populations. They are already not coming into the US. It's not affecting poaching that's going on outside of the country. And what it does affect, at least from what I can see, is that it makes it more difficult for dedicated breeders in the US to move animals back and forth and kind of hinders the captive breeding. I'd like to get your opinion on that.
Well, I probably couldn't have summarized it any better than you just did. In fact, yeah, it's kind of a shame. And I mean, the ESA has its place, and if used properly, I think it's a good tool. But the key is to use it properly.
Yeah, I don't want people to think I'm down on the ESA. I think for native species, it is a fantastic tool, but I question its usage in non-native
You
species
know,
for
my
sure.
argument with the ESA in regards to the Egyptian tortoise is that they're 6,000 miles away.
Yeah,
That's where the problem is. And yet, what we did in this country has zero effect on what is happening over there.
right.
If
And it's
anything, we're
already
trying to create more of them, and that's
yeah,
we're held back. But
right. It's making that more difficult.
yeah, and like you said, we could go on and on and on about it. And maybe later in the conversation we'll touch on some things that we're doing to try and circumvent that. But yeah, the ESA in regards to the Kleinmanni again is such a political hotbed,
Yes.
and it serves every purpose except protecting the species.
It looks good on a glossy brochure from an animal rights group.
It does.
Yep.
It checks off a box and it adds a few bucks to the bottom line,
Yep.
and then they move on. And that's the way it is. And you can argue till you're blue in the face. It's just, you're not going to change it,
Yeah.
sadly.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
As far as keeping them, where do you consider they fall on the spectrum of difficulty? Are they something that you would recommend for a beginner, or do you think they're more of an advanced species to keep?
I feel they're a little more advanced. They have some needs. The biggest problem with them is that they're so small that
Yeah.
if you're not careful with the environment that you keep them in, they don't have any reserves to acclimate. You know, they're not like a yellowfoot or a redfoot. They don't have any, or even Greek tortoises. You know, they're the average Ibera Greek is 10 times bigger than one of these. He has a little bit of substance to him. He can resist a few things.
Yeah.
These guys don't, especially males. I mean, the largest male I have is just 4 inches and weighs 200 grams. 200 grams. I mean, it's like the size of a half of a tangerine, you know?
Yeah. I was going to say, I have little babies that weigh more than
And
that.
yeah, right. And the hatchlings are so incredibly small and so incredibly fragile. I mean, they're actually tough little guys in their own way, in their own environment. But what we want to do is we want to make sure they're warm, so we put a 200-watt bulb under. We want to make sure they're fed, so we pile the food into the enclosure. We want to make sure they have a place to hide, so we put a fancy little thing that they can hide in. We just overdo it. We all overdo it, and it's because we're not sure, so we want to err on the side of too much instead of not enough, I guess is how
Yeah.
I put it.
And
So no, I don't recommend them for beginners.
okay.
I do not, and it's created some animosity amongst people over the years that want them, and this is prior to the ESA thing when I could sell them, and I would just say, thank you, but no, thank you. Get a Herman's tortoise or something like that.
Yeah. And it's a limited population. So you don't necessarily want them to go to someone who's just trying it out, like who hasn't kept tortoises before. And
Yeah, and I heard so many stories, and I saw it firsthand so many times. It's so small, the babies are so small that they can put it in a 10-gallon aquarium with this 100-watt light bulb under it and put it on the desk. And they want it small so that their kid can play with it. And I mean, it's the kiss of death. It's
yeah.
just, sadly, it's the kiss of death.
Yeah.
So I don't. I stopped doing that.
Can you talk a little bit about how you keep them? Like, what's your enclosure size for an adult? And I know your guys are all kept singly. You don't keep groups of adults. Is that right?
That
Or
is
are the
correct.
okay?
Once again, that was something that I just kind of stumbled upon years ago, as my first youngsters were growing up. I just tried to separate them all because I didn't want. I was trying to differentiate the bloodlines, and I didn't want to get things mixed up. And so I said, well, I better get an extra enclosure for this one and an extra for that. And I didn't want them in a little fish tank. So I
Yeah.
started building my own enclosures. And I said, there has to be a decent size. And, the first ones I built were a little small, so I made them bigger. So now I keep them 48 by 18 or 48 by 24. The new ones are 24, and that's per adult. It's
which
one
is a
animal.
really good size for a tortoise that's that
Yeah.
small.
And the only time that there's ever two in an enclosure is during breeding season. And I always put the male in with the females. And of course, they run around, do their thing. But that's how I keep my adults. I've
Okay.
done that
And
for years and years and years.
what substrate are you using?
It's a combination of crushed coral or oyster shell, as they
Hmm.
call it, or sand. And I kind of mix them now 50-50. Years ago, I was 100% crushed coral or chicken grit or
Uh-huh.
oyster shell. It's got, different names. But I tried to be open-minded, and I see other people's setups and try and take tips from them. And so now I add some sand to it. So it's a combination sand, crushed coral mix.
And do
Couple
you
inches thick.
mist them in the morning?
In the summer,
Okay.
not in the winter, no.
Okay.
I spray their food a little bit. I'll give them a tray full of food and I'll spritz it, to keep. But I don't spray the whole enclosure down. Not in the cooler months now.
And what kind of hides are you using? You said everyone has hides.
Well, because I have so many, the dollar store has become my best friend. And so I would go to the dollar store and buy all these little plastic buckets, these little 1-gallon buckets for $1, right?
Uh-huh.
Cut them in half, turn them over, and cut a little hole in the front of it, like a little entranceway, and they'd serve
Perfect.
as hides. And every tortoise in the whole room has the same thing.
That sounds great.
Instead of buying some fancy thing, which are nice. I'm sure they're nice.
Yeah, but also a lot of the, reptile hides aren't necessarily made for tortoise dimensions, so sometimes you just got to do your own thing.
Yeah, and that's what I did, and I think I made one out of a bucket one time. I said, "Man, this works really, really good," And so I just took it and ran with it. And again, when you buy 10 of them at a time, it's easier to buy $10 worth of buckets than $100 worth of fancy hides.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And if it works, that's
they
great.
work fine. And actually, I've even at times with hatchlings, I'll take a terracotta dish and set it on top of this little plastic hide and just put water in it, and it creates on the underside of the hide, the little plastic bucket, it'll create some condensation because that terracotta bleeds,
Yeah,
and so it's a super humid hide for hatchlings.
that's great.
Yeah.
Are you using UV for everyone?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every enclosure has a 24-inch. I happen to use all Zoom Med products.
Okay.
So Zoom Med's listening. Hey, guys. But I either use the 24-inch T8 10.0 or the T5 5.0
Okay.
for UV. And I have a meter. I have a UV meter.
Yeah, solar meter or yeah.
Yeah, solar meter. So it's important. It's real important, actually. You'd be amazed at the difference between the bulbs right out of a box.
Yeah. And what UV index are you usually shooting for them?
Like 3.0,
Okay.
maybe 3.5 at the upper end.
And how long are you leaving the bulbs on during the day?
I'm pretty much on a 12 and 12 cycle.
Okay.
I'm too lazy to change all the timers, so.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about feeding. What are you feeding them?
Primarily greens, leafy greens, romaine, red leaf, green leaf, curly endive, dandelion greens, spring mix, collard greens. But what I've done for years is I buy all that stuff together and I chop it up like a big tossed salad. And I have this big plastic bucket that I just fill it up. And that way I can just reach in there and grab a handful of whatever.
Also makes it harder for them to pick out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they will too. They'll pick out. They have their favorites. They'll start with their favorites, and oh man, now I'm hungry, but I got to go. There's a few other things like mustard greens and turnip greens. I do not use them primarily because they stink.
Yeah.
I just say and collard, not collard. What's the other one? Kale.
Kale. Yeah.
I avoid kale. I don't think kale is a bad thing if it's used sparingly,
Yeah.
but I don't make it a part of their diet.
Yeah. Most of my guys don't seem thrilled by the addition of kale.
Yeah, yeah. Some of these guys will, but I don't use it. And once in a while, it gets mixed in inadvertently, but that's okay. And that's the primary diet. I mean, that's probably 90% of what I feed them. On Monday, I soak about a cup of Missouri tortoise chow, what is it, the 5M21 original blend.
The
And
one that has the star tortoise on it.
yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'll give each adult maybe like 2 nuggets.
Okay.
And that's all they get all week as far as that's concerned. And maybe at the end of the week, if I remember, 'cause I'm getting old, I forget things now. I have the Zoomid tortoise diet, the desert diet,
Yeah.
and I'll soak a little bit of that, again, a cup of it, and let it get in where I can mash it all up, and I'll put a little bit of that on top of the salad.
Do you do any other supplementation? Any calcium or vitamin?
I'll sprinkle a little calcium once in a while. I use some Reptivite minerals or vitamins. I will use that, and then I have some, it's called Repashy. It's vitamin A.
Yep.
I sprinkle that on one day a week. And that's about all as far as vitamins.
Okay.
I do keep large pieces of cuttlebone in the enclosures at all times. I buy cuttlebone in bulk.
I do the same. I do the same thing.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
giant bags of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I get, and I went in with a guy, we bought 100-pound box of it,
Ooh,
Yeah. But
it's a lot of good food.
yeah, really. But it was actually a good deal, and
Yeah.
and I just crack it up with and they're full pieces. They're 6-8 inches long, and I crack it up in each enclosure, and you just let them gnaw on it, and they do. They gnaw on it whenever they want, and it does 2 things. It's a source of calcium, and it grinds their little beak down.
Their beak. Yeah. It's funny because sometimes you'll have cuttlebone sitting in there for months and they won't touch it, and then they'll eat like half of it in a sitting.
Yep.
So,
And then you don't realize that sometimes you look in there, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, where'd all the cuttlebone go? I know
yeah.
2 weeks ago I put a pile of it in there, and it's all gone. So
One thing I forgot to ask you, do they go through any sort of brumation or estivation?
seasonally, they'll slow down.
Okay.
They're typically a more of a cooler weather. Their activity levels are more so in the cooler weather. So during the summer, I wouldn't call it an estivation because they'll come out almost every day, but they'll just stick their nose out from the hide. They come out, they might find a little bit to eat and then go right back in the hide, and they'll sit there for the rest of the day. Sometimes 2 days, actually.
So when it's hot, they're kind of eating less, moving less.
Yeah, moving less, eating less. Yeah, when it's really hot.
So they're more active in the winter for you?
Get more active in the cooler weather. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So how are they like personality-wise? How interactive are they? How active?
I'm not one to, I don't handle them.
Yeah.
I don't, they're not my little buddies, so I don't see much interaction as far as,
Like, are they, when you come in the morning, are they poking their heads out to see what you're doing and that type of thing?
no, they're out because they're sitting under the heat lamps. I like to think that they're waiting on me, but the reality is they're waiting. They're sitting under the heat lamps. I mean, they seem to know that in the morning they're going to get fed, but it's not a big, as far as interaction, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Much. and I don't
So
promote it.
I'm assuming that they are somewhat expensive and hard to get in captivity. You're not going to just find a bunch of them on Morph Market. Is that right?
Well, yes and no, and there's a lot of factors there.
Okay.
For there were very, very few people working with them. I mean, when I bought my hatchlings, I paid dearly, and this is 18 years ago almost. And when they were finally old enough to breed and I started to sell a few, I tried not to get greedy with pricing, but I mean, hatchlings were going for $700, $800, and this is 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And but there weren't any around, nobody had them. So then all of a sudden, several people realized, hey, we can make a killing on these things. And so let's just say people started to breed them to sell them.
Yeah.
And
To make money, not
just to make
necessarily
money.
just
Yeah.
for the animals.
And
Yeah.
and which is fine. That's their business. Okay.
Yeah.
But it got out of hand. And then when the rumors came out about ESA, the prices quadrupled. I mean, it was kind of a shame. I had brokers calling me all the time, want to just buy everything I had at my asking price. It was crazy. And I said, something's not right here. And I sold a few animals to some people. And, within 2 weeks, they're on Morph Markets or whatever for 2 and 3 and 4 times what I sold them to them for.
That's
So,
so disappointing.
yeah. And that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially mine.
Yeah. And it's crazy that they would skyrocket in price right before the listing comes down, because once that happens, you can't sell them out of state, right? So
That's correct. But, there was a lot of misinformation floating around. And, when you have money involved, there's different stories attached to all that. I mean,
yeah,
that's kind of the way it goes. But anyhow, now with the ESA ruling, with the 4D rule that's attached to the ESA law, and by the way, that just for clarification, it's not the ESA that prevents the sale.
okay.
All right. There's an attached rule called the 4D rule.
Okay.
And that 4D rule is the one that prohibits any interstate commerce. And
Okay.
just so people know. But it effectively stopped all sales except within the state that you are a resident of, and only to people who are a resident of the state that you are in.
Which greatly limits who you can sell to.
Yeah. I mean, Florida's a big state. So if I wanted to really pursue it, I could probably sell some more in the state of Florida. Like California is a big state, and there's a lot of people in it too. So they can sell them out in California within the state. But other than that,
Yeah. And if you're in a state that doesn't have someone actively breeding them, you basically can't get them unless you find someone willing to donate them to you.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just the way it is.
All right. So if someone is interested in Egyptians and they're kind of looking into them, is there anything that would make you not recommend them? It sounds like if you've never kept a tortoise before, this is not a recommended species.
They're so small.
Yeah.
That's the key. The beauty of them is that they're so small. The downside of it is that they're so small.
You have like no margin for error.
Yeah, again, you put a 100-watt bulb over a 20-gallon aquarium, and that's going to be 175 degrees inside that 20-gallon aquarium. And no matter how many hides you put in there, you're gonna roast them and dry them out.
Yeah.
Or the flip side of it is it'll cool down at night, and they get sick and get pneumonia. They're real susceptible to that kind of stuff. They have no reserves. Even a perfectly healthy animal has no reserves.
Right. Still a little bit fragile.
It used to be when they came in wild caught, males were at an all-time premium because they were so small they couldn't survive the trips.
The stress.
Stress is a big one. I'm glad you brought that up. Stress is huge with these things, especially males. My males are 150, 160 grams.
Wow.
15-year-old breeding male. I mean, this is just a little bitty guy, and he goes 100 miles an hour inside his enclosure all the time. Uh,
And that's crazy because that's the size of a lot of hatchlings that have a couple months on them or something.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you're still considering them in the fragile stage at that point.
yeah.
So they never get out of it.
The average hatchling weighs about 7 grams.
I
7.
can't even imagine that. That's crazy.
Yeah. And they're susceptible to everything. I mean, I kind of got it figured out. Not that I haven't made mistakes, but I
That's how
learned
we
by
learn,
some of
right?
those mistakes. So yeah, I do pretty good now.
Is there anything that we missed or didn't cover on captive care that you want to bring up?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up as far as the captive care part of it. I would advise anybody, and I do, that is thinking about Egyptians, do the research, or better yet, go get a couple of Herman's tortoises or something like that, and raise them up first. Get yourself some real hands-on experience, and learn. I don't want to say that Hermans are expendable. Please don't interpret it as that. But it's a lot less painful to lose $150 Herman's tortoise than it is a $850 little tiny baby Egyptian.
Yeah.
If for no other reason, you're just inexperienced, not negligent,
Right.
just inexperienced.
And starting with a species that might be a little bit hardier and a little more forgiving of beginner mistakes is definitely the way to go.
And that's what I tell people. That's the part that gets them mad at me, but so be it.
All right. Well, thank you, Ralph, for joining me today. And for our listeners, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode about Egyptian tortoise breeding and hatchling care. If people have questions, where can they find you?
I don't know if I should put it out there or not.
Yeah. So we have been sending people to the TTPG group discussion.
I mean, as far as the TTPG page, you can reach me on there anytime.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions. I'd like to be helpful, but I want real questions.
Not just, do you have available?
Yeah.
I'm sure you get a lot of that.
Oh, I can go on and on and on. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Turtle Tea with TTPG. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. We're brewing up new episodes twice a month, every first and third Monday. If you have any questions or suggestions for future topics, you can reach me at Tortoise Wendy on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, or send an email to tortoisewendy@gmail.com. Until next time, keep on learning, listening, and loving those turtles.